All right, we are live. I'm seeing some pretty cool things going on in the freight market today. Let's see what the volumes are like. Stay tuned right after this. Yes. Good morning. It is Tuesday. Normally I'm live either Wednesday or Friday, but we decided to go on Tuesday, the 23rd. Work should be kind of light this morning. So I figured I'd use this opportunity to go live and show you the freight volume. And then a couple of articles. CDN Freight Broker just sent me one. And then we have the market report that he usually gives us on Monday or Tuesday. So, and it's helpful. It's helpful, and you're going to like what you're seeing with these charts. But again, it's Christmas time. This is the last push of the year, and I haven't had to fight for a lot of rates here lately. So, if you're at home enjoying your family for the holidays, great. But if you're out there running, you could be making some money right now if you're in the spot market. So we'll kind of go over this. Not a whole lot going on this week for me, obviously, because of Christmas. I've got everybody. I got one truck I got to get home or towards the house or through the house. They wanted to run over Christmas because they had 10 days off around Thanksgiving because of a truck issue. So a lot of times you're having to run this time just to kind of make ends meet because you weren't running before or you couldn't run before. So anyways, I figured I'd go over some freight market stuff, an article that CDN sent me, and we'll go over the weather a little bit, and then we'll look at the hot market maps and the load in and out ratios on two load boards, and we'll go from there. I hope you have your coffee. Hope you're I hope you're well. I truly, this time of year is hard for a lot of people. I have to admit, I have not been in the Christmas spirit. But a couple of things have happened the last couple of weekends that have kind of like touched this cold heart just a little bit, So, but other than that, holidays are kind of a weird thing. I've got 3 holidays. I've got we've got Christmas. Well, we got Thanksgiving, then we got Christmas, and then we've got New Year's, and then we got my birthday. So, 4 holidays. This time of year is always difficult. A lot of reflection, right? So, but anyways, let me switch something here. There. That's better. That's better. Makes the headphones sound better. But anyways, good morning. Hope all is well. Um, weather-wise, we're doing all right. So let's see here. Let's show the screen here. I'm not a meteorologist, and what I have noticed though is that there are websites out there that want to hype. They want to make things like everything's like the world is ending. Oh my gosh, this is going to be the biggest weather event because of global warming ever. And so you have to there's a lot of sensationalists out there. Um because that's what gets views, like I could easily title my videos 5 ways that you're trucking wrong, or 10 ways that the spot market is doing this to you, or 10 ways that you're doing, like all the negative stuff, right? And of course, that's why my subscriber count struggles at times. That's why I've only got 16 people in here, because I'm not hyping, I'm not yelling, I'm not telling people how wrong they are. I'm not telling you that the world's going to end. I'm not telling you that there's no end in sight and we're going to all blah blah. I'm not doing that. Um Nor am I just like pouring out my heart to you and telling you that everything sucks, and I'm sharing my misery with you. People love that. And I don't want to contribute to that. I'm just here to report what I see in my experiences with dealing with 20 drivers, 20 some odd drivers. I forget what number we're up to now. And then the several that I dispatch for our company here at Lake Trucking. And, we got some big things. The company has some big things in the works. Um, More lease trucks possibly. And then also maybe something going on in Louisville this year. You're right. You're right, cheap freight hauler. Misery loves company. Anthrax wrote a song about that. Um, Actually, it's about the book Misery, but um, you're right. People want to be validated of their own fears, their own angers. You know, I was having a conversation with my youngest, who's now 21, and we were talking about alcohol, and I said, alcohol is a truth serum. It brings out whatever's bothering you. It brings out, like, if you're a violent drunk, that you have a tendency to violence. If you're you just keep it subdued when you're sober. If you're easy when you're drunk, then you desire intimacy. If you're a funny drunk, then that's you just kind of letting loose of what you really would like to be. It's like alcohol is we were talking about the truth serum, right? And um I find bars to be kind of miserable places these days, you know. Um so I really don't go to them anymore. I haven't really, like, other than some wine at Christmas, that's about all I do now. But I I don't know. It's a dark time right now. A lot of people are struggling, a lot of people are miserable, a lot of people, and I have great compassion for them, but sometimes we just need the swift kick in our butt and get off our butts and go, right? Get up and go. Instead of being miserable and trying to bring everybody down with us. All right, so let's go over the comments here. Shannon Thomas, good morning. Coffee Fire, thank you for that comment. Desert Pan, good morning. Thank you for your membership. Big Billy, good morning. How you doing, man? How you doing? Let's see. Good morning from the KW dealer. Uh-oh, is that a good or a bad thing? TC Box, what's up? Haven't seen you in here in a minute. Merry Christmas. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too. Gary Cook, what's up? Hope you're recovering from your gunshot wound. Where'd they get you? Where'd they get you on that? Chief Freight says, I have more fun in bars now that I don't drink. Here's the thing. Springfield is a fairly, I mean, we're the third largest city in Missouri. And there are there's this core group of people that have been going to the cover band scene bars for as long as I can remember. And what's interesting is that 30 years later, I see the same people. Like they look more unhealthier, they like it's like I don't know, man. It seems sad, right? And that was one of the things that burned me out about playing in the band is that, seeing this, we're playing, for the same 20 people. And I don't know, man. I there's more to life out there than that. I've never understood the barfly life. Now, there was a time where that was appealing to me, and the wife and I were actually thinking about opening up our own place. But age and wisdom and a changing of the spirit, kept us from doing that. And then also some common sense. And it would have been in vain too, because COVID took a lot of these type of places out. But I have a friend of mine that plays guitar. He's very, very good, excellent, one of the best guitar players I know. And he was stuck in the cover band vortex, and he was miserable. He was an alcoholic. And everybody was worried about him. Then one day he just up and left, quit drinking, moved to Nashville, and now he's a big time studio guy playing for a famous band and doing a lot of studio work, traveling across the whole world. And it's amazing what you can do when you just snap out of what traps you. I know this isn't trucking. Everybody's here. I want to hear about the freight in Minnesota. It's like, no, this is just life advice. If you have any familiarity with my channel, we start off, I read the comments, we look at the weather, and then I spout some words of wisdom, like I know a thing or two, because I don't. And then we get into the trucking thing, right? In the leg. I'm glad they didn't get the artery there. What do they call that? The femoral form, that artery that you can bleed to death. When hauling gas, a new guy had been shot twice delivering gas. His nickname was Lucky. Yeah, I mean, I was pretty fortunate, and I talk about carrying on the truck. It was actually on the truck. There was like, if I was in Missouri, I would carry outside of the truck, but for the most part, I didn't really carry it with me outside of the truck unless I was in certain areas. But the last couple of years that I was running that I did carry, I wasn't really running a whole lot of areas where there was probably going to be a problem. Um but I do like when we get a new driver and I ask him if one of the first things I ask him is, do you carry on the truck? Because if so, you got to pay attention to the army bases. You got to pay attention to the ports. You got to be careful with that, and then the state laws. You don't want to be in Illinois with a Missouri permit and be carrying outside of the truck. Um, you can get in a lot of trouble. So I mean, you got to be smart about it, right? And so and you don't need a 45 in the back of your sleeper. It's like you don't want to hit the two trucks next to you. If somebody comes in the truck, So I mean, it's I had a balance of what I carried and when I carried and all that stuff. So, um, femoral. Thank you, David Edwards. What's up? Uh, I was shot with a BB gun. The guy robbed you with a BB gun? Huh. That's interesting. There's a video of a guy that goes into a restaurant and he starts robbing people at gunpoint. And then as he's turning his back on this one dude in the booth, man, he just goes up and blasts him and, instantly unalived, right? And turns out the guy was carrying a BB gun. So I mean, it happens. Those CO2 pellet guns hurt. Yeah, the pellet guns definitely. I mean, they got the ones that have the little like tear gas balls too, I think. So, but either way, I mean, someone presents a gun, whether it's lethal or not, you can consider a lethal threat and you can take it out. So, Chief Freight says $430 for a little plastic coolant hole is about a half inch by 3 feet. Here's the interesting thing. So I was almost to Rolla when I blew a radiator hose. And so I dumped about 2 gallons, managed to get it out of, there's like a stretch there by Rolla where you can't, like, there's no shoulder. So, like, I was able to throw a bunch of water into it and just get to the next ramp, which is literally the ramp to the Loves. Like, I couldn't get any further. So it cost me a road call. And I call up one dude and he's like, "Oh man, that's a Kenworth. I'm gonna have to go all the way to Jefferson City to get a hose for that." And like he was like freaking out. So I called the tow truck shop that was literally next to the Loves there in Rolla. Like, we'll be out there in 5 minutes. And he has this huge hose. He cuts it to the right length, gets me on my way. It's like the more these trucks get specially, the guy was freaking out because it was a pack car. He had to go to Peterbilt to get the exact hose. Meanwhile, this guy was like, cut it up. And, and what I ended up doing after that run was I ended up going back to Kenworth and getting what they call a hose party. You replace all the hoses and make sure, because, the truck was getting up there in age. A lot of people are worried about their turbos and their air compressors and their fuel pumps and all that, when plastic and rubber wears out pretty good as well, right? So you always have to change those things out. So anyone can buy a BB gun. That's true. Anyone can buy a regular gun if they know the right things. They know the right networks. Did you see his second comment? Interesting that YouTube wanted to hide the description of the criminal. No, I did not. Huh. Yeah, I mean, there's some that have the actual feel, and they're supposed to have the same kickback. So Dying Breed, the classic phrase: "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." Right? What's up, man? What's up, Mike? Hope you're doing well. $30 part, $400 labor. Yeah, that's the MO, right? That's the MO. My wife's supposed to be taking her driving test this morning. God's plan. I'm not complaining. There you go. I'm putting the hose on. It's actually $430 just to buy it. That's crazy. It was for Into the BB. Yeah, I know. So, anyways, all right. So, as you can see, California is going to be all janked up. There's some weather cyclone thing, whatever, coming through. So, Christmas is going to be tough for California. It's supposed to be in the upper 70s here on Christmas Day. Can you believe that? So that means in January it's going to be -20 for about 30 days. That's probably what's going to happen. So anyways, and then the Northeast got some winter weather advisory. So if you're traveling up here, just be careful. Then we got some fog going on here at the border, and then also in Missouri and Kansas and parts of Oklahoma, parts of Illinois. So easy breezy, easy breezy. This is the 123 low board 48065. If you want to try out my code for free for 30 days, this is the tool I use the most right here. And then load availability, that's a great way to kind of go over market with some newbies. Let's see, and then we've got van. And then I also use the DAT board, although they do not pay me because they don't like me. And then truck stop, they won't even talk to me, whatever. So, which is a shame because I heard that they've upped their tool game as well. Let's see. This is these are the national load counts. This is a good way to take the temperature of the market. Now, the other thing that is going on, so CDN sends me this this report, overall market report, and look at this. Look at reefer. Reefer is almost to the tight capacity, which is pretty cool. And look at van. Van is almost in neutral. I have not seen van this high in quite a while. I had my buddy Right Lane comment that he's actually feeling like we're turning over. Don't let this be a dead cat bounce. It could be just because of the holidays. So we're going to be cautious about this, right? And and I was talking to Jeff because he's looking at another truck. And I was talking to Jeff about this. Like, man, the minute that the market turns, these dealerships are going to up that price and try to get in early on this, resurgence of people wanting to get back into the industry. And so there's got to be a balance, right? There's got to be a balance where you pay a decent price for a truck and the market is good, but not so insanely high that, everybody and their mother's buying a truck and throwing somebody in it. My wife mentioned that she had heard a story about a Somalia immigrant that was caught hauling fuel with no license in an 18-wheeler. You'll see an uptick of that if market rates go insane, right? So just be aware that too high actually does exist because it brings in all the bad elements. Because the last time the market did a surge like that, what happened? Everything went up. Price of everything went up. Labor went up. Tolls went up. Taxes went up. So there's got to be a balance, right? There's got to be a good balance. And so this is positive news, but let's see what this looks like in February. Let's see, because February is when the spring freight really starts, if not late January. I'm talking mulch. I'm talking lawn and garden products. I'm talking fertilizer. I'm talking stuff for farming. All that stuff starts shipping in late January. And so, because they don't want to have to pay out the yin yang for, shipping that in April and being caught behind. Let's see. CDN says, good morning, Steve. With all the carrier vetting required, spot market concept is getting old. 50% of carriers who call I cannot work with. That's interesting. Sounds like it's getting rough out there. CDN broker requirements are tightening up. Yeah, because here's the thing. I mentioned this before, that because of the non-domicile CDL issue that we're dealing with right now, brokers have had to pay a lot of money to recoup these crappy carriers that they were using, which is why a lot of rate cons, a lot of brokers, they need the VIN number of the truck, they need the license, they need to be a U.S. citizen, they need to speak clear English. The brokers are, if the government's not going to do the job, the brokers are going to do it. The industry is going to do it themselves. And right now you've got California and New York trying to fight the government on tell them, hey, you can't have these people have a CDL. And they're like, no, we need them to have the CDL. It is insane what they're allowing to happen. And so, yeah, the broker vetting is going to be harsher and harsher. It's going to, and I'm seeing that. I'm seeing evidence of that myself. And the brokers that know how to utilize that and manage that, they're gonna shine over these small brokers that want to use any mom and pop carrier that might be unplugging their ELD, or they might have a ghost team member, or they just changed their MC number on the side of the truck because they have a piece of paper with duct tape on it with their MC number, and basically it was like the Wild West again, to where like the old days, here's an interesting thing that you might want to try someday. Talk to a guy that used to be a freight broker 30 years ago, or still doing it now, but did it 30 years ago. It was the Wild West. You'd call on a load that you get from DAT in the truck stop, the digital, dial a truck. And the broker hoped that the carrier didn't hold the load hostage. And you hope that the broker paid. And it was a longer process. It was a more dangerous process, and they would call up, hey, if you can get from California to New York in 2 days, I'll put a bonus of X amount on this to get this load move. It was a very cutthroat. It still is a cutthroat. It's just a little bit more prim and proper now. But a lot of these carriers figured out, oh, this ELD thing's annoying, so I'll just unplug the ELD, or I'll use PC wrong, or I'll just have my team member drive this stretch, or you have incidents where the driver drives, maxes out his hours. Next thing you know, he looks at his ELD, and the home base have changed things to where they can keep running. That's why the hours of service were brought into the fold, was so you weren't forced to go from California to New York in 2 days. That's how it was in the old days. I think it was the Teamsters that brought about the hours of service. And if you had great stamina and you knew the right, you bought those little white thins at the Oklahoma truck stops, whatever, you could get that run done and make a lot more money than the guy that was running legal. It was just like, it was almost an unmentioned rule that that's how you ran. Like the company I was with, I started on paper, and what they would do is they would audit the logs to the Mobile Max, which, predates Qualcomm. And they would find out who the rule breakers were through those audits. But they also found out when they needed something done, who to give those loads to. So it was like, hey, we noticed that you didn't do this that day. Stop. By the way, you got this run. Your dispatcher will tell you about it. That's how it was. That's how it was in the old days, right? If you could bend the rules, you made more money. And people have figured out a way around the ELDs, right? And so you got to be careful out there. And so the industry is going to regulate themselves. So we'll go back to the comments here. CDN, can you share what causes disqualifications for carriers? Steve, have you tracked how many calls or emails you need to make in order to find a broker willing to pay the rate you're seeking? Is it harder now versus the start of 2025? It's actually easier to get the rate I'm looking for right now because of what you see on the screen right now. I haven't had to fight for the money. But you got to understand that I'm not calling 30 brokers for each load, because if I did that for 5 or 6 drivers, I would lose my mind. Because to book one load, I'm looking at 30 plus emails in one chain just to communicate, because no one wants to talk on the phone. And I'm also playing communicator for the other drivers that I don't even dispatch to help bridge the gap between the broker and the I always add the driver into the email chain, and I tell the driver, you need to communicate with these brokers, right? But I've actually been doing pretty good on the rates. I've actually had some trucks hit close to $7,000 in a week in dry van, running legal. So, I mean, the money is out there, but you got to be smart, you got to be efficient, and you got to do it right, and you got to work with the right brokers. There's a lot of shady brokers that don't know how to communicate. And then you have to differentiate between the AI brokers as well. Like, for example, I had one broker that kept emailing for updates, and I would always add the driver in. And I was literally emailing saying, adding the driver again. And then finally, one person emailed me and said, look, sorry that you have to keep adding the driver, but this is our AI automated response. I'm like, oh, okay, well, and then meanwhile, the human element is being tackled. Right now, C.H. Robinson is going through a rough patch with our reps. Our representatives are all over the place. We've got they're and Arrive Logistics is bad about this too. They will scramble and beat each other up in the office just to get our business. And to the point that as these brokers are getting away from the human connection, their workers are being displaced, and it's causing a lot of grief and strife. So, Chief Freight Carrier 1, carrier now willing to establish ELD connection. Others, safety rating, unusual digital activities, not yet set up on highway, not enough cargo insurance. Dispatchers lie. The days of paid dispatchers that do multiple companies, those days are over. All these people that paid $600 or whatever, that dude in Atlanta to learn how to dispatch trucks, that guy got his money. Everybody else is hurting. I dabbled in that too, but it was getting more and more difficult. So now I just dispatch for Like Trucking as a Like Trucking employee, and it's been a lot easier, right? It's been a lot better. And there's no way that a dispatch service right now that does multiple carriers can survive right now because of what that is. Because here's the deal. You can sign up with Highway as a dispatch service. However, what happens is you call certain brokers, there's an automated line that says this phone number is associated with the dispatch service. Click. They won't even answer your phone. The AI is the gatekeeper right there. Right? And so even if you register on Highway as a dispatch service, there's a lot of brokers that will not work with you. They will not deal with you. And so being a dispatch service is not it's not a venue anymore. The industry should have been doing this the entire time. Can't depend on the government doing anything correctly. But yeah, greed steps in. Greed says, hey, if we can hire a bunch of drivers that barely know what they're doing, so we can tell them exactly what they need to do, and they won't fight us, and we'll do it for half the wages. That's what caused this. It was greed that caused this. Greed. Shippers are a major culprit. They send a list of loads to 8 to 10 brokers, sit back waiting for the cheapest rate. No care for the vetting process brokers go through. That is true as well. And you see it on a lot of water loads or junk mail. And those shippers tend to be the ones that you're at the dock and there's a lot of BS and you can't get loaded in good time. And there are good shippers and bad shippers. And I found that a lot of the bad shippers are associated with the cheaper freight. So, if you're booking a load that's paying 98 cents a mile to go from Georgia to California, the shipper and receiver are probably not fun to deal with. So, Cian says that's great. I'm connected on all just roadside now. Okay. I'm connected on all just now. Roadside inspections. I've been putting brokers on do not use that rely on inspections to tender loads. Steve, check the article I emailed you. New bill could put even more responsive motor carriers. I'm getting ready to go over that. Everyone says it's not possible to break down charges. LTL carriers do it all the time. Just the other LTL shipment went up 250 for an extra 58 pounds using the lift gate at delivery. Spot should be the same. Coyote is now RXO. RXO bought them out. So your Coyote rep now has an RXO email if he didn't get laid off. TC Box or AI bot should check with the AI driver autoresponder. The robots can be booped together. Yeah. Every action or delay beyond driver's control has a related charge for spot carriers. How lumpers are paid change. It just takes 3 brokers to break down charges. Industry has changed. However, CDN, here's the biggest challenge with that. There's a lot of brokers that will ghost you when it comes time for detention and layover or stop pay. And if you have a list of demands that they have to sign to have, in order before you sign their rate con, guess what? They will not work with you. They will blacklist you. They want an easy target. They don't want to have to pay detention or layover. And, and a lot of them there are sometimes I get detention like that. Those are the brokers that I'm willing to do loads like Target and Cisco and all that with, right? And then there are times when it takes 2 weeks to get detention approval. There are some brokers that won't even give you a truck order not used. King of Freight was a broker that we showed up. They ghosted me completely when they didn't have the load. And it was from one of these shippers that it goes out to 8 to 10 brokers. And instead of admitting that they didn't have the load and giving us a TONU, they ghosted. Like they won't even answer the phone. And so they're on my DNU list. I will never book a load with that broker again. And that's why, the first 5 brokers I call, I look at their websites on their load boards first, because I know that they're good about detention, they're good about layover, they're good about adding stop pay if needed. They're good about recouping the mistakes that brokers make all the time. We had a driver yesterday that showed up at the receiver and they're like, "You're not even scheduled, dude. We're not unloading you at all." And the rep that he was using with this big brokerage ghosted him, so he went above his head. 7 hours later, he finally got unloaded and got some layover. But most of the time, brokers be like, "Sucks to be you, dude. Don't know what to tell you." But then on the rate con, it says you can't contact the customer, you can't, schedule your own appointment, yada, yada, yada. So, lumpers, it's the same thing. Lumpers should not be the driver's responsibility. We had a lumper check of almost $800 a couple of weeks ago. Sterling, good morning. Thank you for your membership. Tucson, Arizona. It's probably nice out there. Yeah, I agree with you, Gary. So, I mean, it's like, CDN, you say a lot of good things that are smart, and you're a very good professional. You are. I mean, I wish I could just do all your freight with all my trucks. But you have to understand, just like there are bad carriers out there, there are so many bad brokers out there, and they're just trying to make a buck, and they'll do it dishonestly. And they want the carriers that don't know what they're doing. Oh, this guy just said he would do this lane for $1,500 when this lane normally pays for $25, and I could easily ghost him if there's a detention at this place that sucks, and that's commonplace. And so when I'm looking at a load board, I'm automatically filtering through those brokers. Been doing this long enough that if it's in all caps and it's a name similar like like instead of total quality logistics, it's total quality freight, something like that. Or if it's all caps with a 7-digit number, I'll check the credit, but more than likely I'm not going to book with that broker. And so as a new broker, it's probably very difficult right now to go against the TQLs and the CH Robinsons and the RXOs. So yep, TC Box, that is legit, dude. POD is your power when extra charges are pending. These are issues for factory companies to start tracking. We need a company like Highway to vet brokers to go to shipper. Broker stops responding. I agree with that. I do remember when Walmart, it used to be $50. I was like, really? Okay. Sterling, you must take some selfie at Triple T like all the other truckers do. All the super truckers do. If I've been to that Triple T, it was like, I don't know how long that place has been around, but if I did, if it was around in the late 80s, I was there as a kid probably, but I don't remember it. So, all right. TC Box says, funny how the market gets shook up when the rule of law is actually enforced. Illegal carriers, illegal drivers are going away. Right. All right. So let's, with that being said, let's go to the article this is from Freight Waves. This is the article that CDN sent me. New legislation could upend trucker broker margins. Bill imposes 10% surcharge on contracts with violation-prone trucking companies. Of course, it's got a picture of a beautiful wreck there. Washington, new legislation threatens to transform the way truck brokers do business, replacing voluntary vetting practices with a stiff federal penalty for contracting unsafe motor carriers. Introduced by the U.S. Rep. John Mulliner, the Patrick and Barbara Kowalski Freight Broker Safety Act claims to improve roadway safety by holding freight brokers directly accountable for the safety records of the trucking companies they hire. The bill is named after the parents of Shannon Mertz, who were killed in a crash involving a trucking company that had several safety violations. Companies like the one involved in my parents' accident must be held accountable, Mertz said in a statement. My family and I are thankful for Congressman Mulliner's responsiveness and efforts to prevent another family from experiencing the heartbreak we have felt. Specifically, the bill mandates a 10% surcharge on contracts with trucking companies that have 3 or more Department of Transportation violations within a 5-year period. It would also grant the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration unprecedented authority to investigate freight brokers and impose operating requirements after fatal crashes. So let's take a look at that accident of the guy doing the U-turn in Florida. Think about if the broker was being sued for that because they were using that carrier and the carrier was knowingly using that driver that had a dangerous history because he took a bridge out in Arkansas in 2019 because he couldn't read the sign. Then he was also pulled over in Colorado, and there's badge cam footage of that guy not being able to even communicate with the officer hardly. And so the carrier should be sued. The broker using that carrier should be sued. And that's what this is they're going to hold the carrier. So the brokers are going to have to be careful of the carriers that they're hiring. TIA has spent nearly a decade lobbying for standardized fitness legislation to counter conflicting standards that brokers face in court following highway accidents. The Motor Carrier Safety Selection Standard Act, reintroduced in September, requires that brokers and shippers contract only with trucking companies registered with the FMCSA, hold a valid operating authority, and meet the required insurance thresholds. It also directs FMCSA to create a public-facing website confirming which carriers meet these requirements. But while the TIA-backed legislation aims to clarify when a broker has done enough to ensure a carrier is safe, the Kowalski Act focuses on holding brokers directly accountable for the actual safety history of the companies they choose to employ. Both bills reflect a push to define federal broker responsibilities, which have been less defined compared to those of motor carriers. So there you go. That's the look. Trucking has changed. You know, I drove for 15 years. Actually, more than that. More than half of that was as an owner operator. And my dad was an owner operator in the 80s. So I've been part of the industry since, well, the 80s, right? I've seen the major changes that have happened. You know, if you were to take a time machine and go back to 1986 and fast forward them to now, they wouldn't recognize the industry at all. And the more, you know, ELDs were about compliance. It was that they were about surveillance. You know, the insurance companies give you a huge discount if you let them tap into the ELD. Pretty soon that's going to be a requirement. You know, highway is connected to the ELD. So brokers can access what's going on. You know, I could do a highway carrier packet and still have to give the VIN number so they can confirm that the VIN number is with this company. So, I mean, it's, you know, where back in the old days, you could steal a load pretty easily and run rogue and run illegal. You know, those days are gone. And as soon as people figure out how to get around this system, they'll change the system again. Nobody can solve the mystery where brokers expect 3 inspections, but carriers try and cannot get any inspections. Chicken and egg game. It is. I had a friend of mine that had his own authority that was tired of being told he couldn't run a broker's freight because he didn't have any inspections. So he went and got inspected, and guess what? They found a bunch of stuff. He was put out of service. And it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. And sometimes you get a paper check and they won't even put that on the record. Like I had one scale pull me in. I was training at the time. I come in, he's like, "Let me see your logbook." Well, I didn't show him logbook. I showed him my permit book. Check, make sure we had authority. He's like, "Oh, bills look good. Are you on duty right now?" I said, "Yes." If I had said, "No, I'm off duty right now," he would have given me a ticket because I was in the passenger seat with my trainee driving. All right, well, you're good to go. Have a good day. Didn't take an account, you know, so it could have been an inspection, but it wasn't. So, but it is kind of frustrating for a new to start your own authority now. You're at a huge disadvantage than you were even 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Because you got to find that broker that will work with you despite not having any inspections. And they're going to take advantage of that. It's kind of like if you're a company driver and you've rolled a truck at your company and they don't fire you, but you pretty much can't be hired than anyone else. They own you, right? That's kind of what you're looking at with that. All right, so let's go to DAT real quick. Let's look at the in and out ratios. Let me refresh this. See what kind of volume we're going to get for a last minute load getting home, right? And now if you watched Friday's live feed, I told you that there's going to be a lot of canceled loads. There's going to be a lot of people disappointed on the 23rd and 24th when they try to go to deliver, they try to go to pick up and the load's not there. And so working with a broker that you know that is professional about these things is very important in this time. this week, the next 2 weeks, really, because we're gonna do this all over again next week with New Year's. Okay. Arkansas is looking pretty good. 407 out. I've been getting some good rates out of Arizona, although the in and out ratio is bad. Look at California. We were at 3,000 loads coming out, I think, last week. Now we're at 1992. Florida's actually got more out than in. Look at that. 1150 going in and 1351 coming out. Georgia's pretty good. Illinois is at 2,600 out. Indiana looks good with 1,000 out. Kansas, not so much. Let's see what Missouri's doing. Michigan looks good. 548 in and 803 out. Minnesota's got more out than in, which is rare. Missouri is about even. 743 in, 831 out. North Carolina looks about even with some good volumes. What's Georgia doing? 1234 in, 1632 out. Mississippi's not looking good. Oklahoma is bad. There's only 183 loads coming out of Oklahoma today. In comparison, Colorado's got 389. This is just off the DAP board. We'll go over 1, 2, 3 low boards volumes as well. New Jersey looks good. I know that's kind of an oxymoron. Look at Ohio, 1387 in and only 1102 out. So it's kind of volumes are kind of all over the place. They're in little pockets here and there. Wisconsin's got almost 1,000 loads coming out. And this is all for van, by the way. Virginia's not great. Texas has got 3176 coming out. So there's some volumes there. So you can probably get that load home today. Just be cautious. Just be careful. If you're picking up or delivering tomorrow, you're playing with fire a little bit, depending on where you're going. Let's go to 1, 2, 3. Sterling says 2016 was the last really good year that I had in trucking as far as risk versus reward and time versus profit. James G, good morning. Hope you're doing well. All right, let's put this on van. So Colorado's green. So there's abundance of freight coming out of Colorado on both low boards here. See what the highest paying load out of Colorado is right now. $2 a mile to go to Florida. What if this is alcohol? No, 20,000 pounds. I doubt it is. Oh, I bet you I know what this is. I bet you this is doors. Usually pay pretty good coming out. $1.94 to go to North Carolina, $1.87. So, which is pretty high for Colorado. So if we do the highest rate per mile, I bet you this Aurora to Plant City is going to be on top. Unless it's a $400 job. Yep. Denver to Cheyenne, $500 for 110 miles. Wyoming. Here's Denver to Casper, Wyoming, 286 miles, $1,200. Let's take a look at this one, because here's what you can do. If the weather cooperates, is this a heavy load, 45 beverages? You can pretty much run this round trip, right? 286 miles times 2, that could be done in a day. So you pick up on Monday, deliver Monday evening, and then turn around and just go back and forth. So what I would do is I'd call this broker and say, hey, man, how often do you have these? If you got one a day, let's go. And if the shippers and receivers cooperate, man, you can do pretty good with that. If it's a wide open window on each end, you can make bank on this and just run it till the weather says you can't. Now, with that being said, you're going half empty, and that could be a problem there in Wyoming. Been there, done that. It's not fun. Sterling, I'll get you your search here in a second. Now, StreamYard is supposed to have some Christmas theme. I guess I should have turned it on since this is kind of the Christmassy thing. Yeah, a lot of this is going to be beer. So my guess is that Kovar has a lot of beer loads. So, but Colorado's actually got some decent outbounds on this board and DAT. Let's look at Missouri. Sort this by highest rate. Sorry, that was my dog. What are you doing, dog? Kansas City to Portland. 236 a mile. I wonder if this is multiple stop. Expedited freight. Team driven. It's a team load. A lot of team loads right now. Hopefully after the holidays, this whole setup's going to look different. I'm getting a new monitor, and I've got a new monitor, but I've got to get a new desk. So this little shakiness is going to go away, hopefully. Just putting that out there. And of course, these St. Charles loads, these are all shopping carts. Go to Canada with shopping carts. $1.54 to go to California. Usually this is a $1.30 lane right here. $1.30 a mile. All right, let's take a look at Pennsylvania. I never look at the states coming out of the Northeast. Let's take a look at their rates. So let's sort this by highest rate. Now, generally, your highest rate's going to get out of Pennsylvania. Right? Here's Utah, Texas. They're all, 246 go to Rockwall. Let's take a look at this one. But look at the delivery. Picks up today, delivers tomorrow. 1179. They need a team for this slope, but they're not going to mention that. But you deliver this Friday, that's not a bad rate because normal it's $1.78. They're at 246. Let's see. Yeah, $1.13. So a little bit over $2 to go to Florida. And what I've been finding this week is I've had a truck go from Georgia to Pennsylvania and back twice, and they're doing really good with that. We've been able to stay north of $2 a mile. Now, see this Oklahoma, right? So we just looked at Oklahoma, and Oklahoma was not doing very well. And so $1.85 to go to Oklahoma, that's, I don't know. I don't think I would do that for 1,300 miles. Especially with 44,000. What's the average on this? The average on this is 27, just barely above $2 a mile. 206 a mile. So if we get it up to there, that would work. But what part of Oklahoma? Ponca City. Where is that? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's kind of in the middle of nowhere. So you definitely got to get your rate going in on that one. Let's see. So let's go. Let's sort this by highest rate per mile. Now, the highest rate per mile is either going to go to Florida or Northeast, deeper Northeast. Here's 952 a mile to go 63 miles, $600. $7 a mile, $1,000 to go from Bethlehem to Ronkonkoma, New York, which is on the island. $183 worth of tolls. A lot of the shorties. Here we go. 1,400 go to West Virginia. Of course, you're not going to get much out of there. $6 a mile. But see, you can pull this off today. Deliver this first thing in the morning. But then you're going to struggle to get out of West Virginia. And you're going to burn a lot of fuel. This is going to be over 45 wood pellets. Who knows what? Like if the wood pellets are stored outside, that's going to trash your trailer. So food grade is going to be out for a minute. You got to take all these things into account. But look at this: $5 a mile to go to West Virginia, $5 a mile to go to New York, $5.45 a mile to go to Brooklyn. I haven't seen rates like this in a long time. Shippensburg to Marcy, New York, $1,600 for 310 miles. Here we go. 483 a mile to go from Carlisle to North Canton, Ohio. This is the it's hazmat. Say this is the load to get, but it's hazmat. So Maryland, no. Let's see. Erie, PA to Salisbury, North Carolina, $2,400. Picking up tomorrow. I might actually keep this one. Let's see. So if I want to save this load, I'm going to do this. Boink. So I'm going to look at that one for later because I got a truck that's going to be up in Pennsylvania. 1,400 to go 335 miles into Connecticut. So $143 in tolls. Just keep that in mind. Not to mention the Connecticut tax that they tack on trucks now. It's up to you to do your numbers and make sure that if it's profitable or not. So if you want to bounce around the Northeast, I mean, you can do it. We got a couple that do that up there. You can almost throw a dart at the map and get $2 a mile. Good times, yes. Electric stand-up desk is where it's at. It's also beyond my budget. Snorelord's hammer fist have rattled this desk loose. Make sure you can pound fist on the new one. Jeff was telling me I need to build my own with the butcher block. That's a great idea conceptually, but I'm not a very handy person. Salisbury, North Carolina smells like it's going to go in the food line. Negotiate detention beforehand. That's true. That is true. So a lot of good freight right now. DAT volumes look good, except for Ohio, which is kind of strange. You know, Ohio's not looking really great, but let's check Ohio here on 123. Showing 386 outbound. $232 to go from South Point to Lakeland. Let's do this on highest rate. See where the long haul stuff's going. Now, if you're doing long haul working through Christmas, you should be getting premium rate because you're going to have an extra day on it. Here's $1.90 to go all the way to California. That's rare to see it that high going all the way out there. 3,300 to go to Tampa. Almost $2 a mile to go to Salt Lake. Florida, California. Here's one going to Texas. Not a great rate. Here we go. Cincinnati Grand Prairie, $2,500. I would take this. Looks like they need a plate trailer, 102 wide, food grade. Yeah, this is a good load right here. Cincinnati picks up at noon on Friday, delivers Monday morning at 8 a.m. Dallas market ain't that bad. I could deal with Dallas markets. It's how you get out of there. 12K Georgia to Washington posted now. Wow. The other challenge with my desk is I've got this confined area that I got to figure out. So who knows what's going to happen? All I know is this thing's getting ready to fall down. But at any rate, let's look at reefer real quick. California, Arizona, green. Texas, Missouri. And then let's take a look at flatbed. Let's see if the Southeast is still fire down here for flatbed. Let's throw step deck in here. Fly. Oh, look at that. Yep, Southeast. Over 1,000 loads coming out of Alabama. A lot of loads coming out of Arkansas, Georgia. Illinois is all a light here within the Midwest. And then you've got the Northwest or West Coast. And then Idaho's doing all right. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Let's do power only. People keep asking me, hey, man, is power only a good, blah, blah, blah. No. Power only can be a losing game if you don't do it right. It's quite a bit. Now, here, I'll show you. California, 147 loads. Who is it? One-way trailers. They've got a bunch of loadout trailers. Pretty much the power only game on 123 is basically one-way trailers. Every now and then you can find one from, like, here's Fitzmark, Tulsa to Belleville, Maryland, 3,245 a mile. Let's take a look at this, 26,000 pounds. Now, I will say this, power only is probably a little bit of an uptick right now because a lot of trailers were used as storage, like at Schneider and Werner and Swift and all that. And so the brokers might be trying to move those kind of trailers. Or there's a lot of drop trailers. Look for power only to be big this week and next week because a lot of shippers, receivers, they'll want the trailers dropped because they'll have limited hours that they're open. Here's a fifth wheel required generator on chassis. Just hook up and go. Loads 8 to 3. $3,000 to go to Maryland out of Tulsa. And that's what you do. So you sort this by highest rate. And that'll get you the true power onlys that you don't have that loadout trailer. And that's how you find that. So, but. All right. Well, I hope everyone, if I don't talk to you before then, I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas if you celebrate that. If you don't, then I hope you just have a good weekend. Be safe out there. There's a lot of people traveling. Gas is down, fuel's down. So there's going to be a lot more people traveling. A lot of people on the interstate that normally aren't on the interstate. So they don't know the etiquette. They don't know the tricks of the trade. So don't be watching that Netflix going down the road. Don't be, surfing TikTok, while you're going down that lonely desert road. And don't go live while you're driving. That's dumb. So with that being said, be safe. Strength for today, hope for tomorrow. And hopefully I'll do a Christmas live feed either on this channel. If you aren't already subscribe to Snorelord OG as well. That would be swell. So, and then also, let me put this out there. If you want to show support to the channel, there's how you can do it. Also, if you want to try out the load board, 123 load board, go to 123lowboard.com, type in my code 48065, and that will get you the first 30 days free. Try it out for yourself. If you like it, cool. If not, then you had your chance. So with that being said, strength for today, over tomorrow. And maybe we'll see you Friday. It depends. Peace.